turn the volume down.
Notice this is an open session public meeting and they're subject to being videotaped. Your image and voice may be used. So we'll start with our new business. We have approval of meeting minutes. So the ones for approval are September 6th, when just Chris and I were here.
Motion to approve?
I second that. All in favor?
Well, can I ask?
Oh, yes. Do you have any changes?
I just wanted to note that the liquor license for St. Joseph's was approved.
Does it say not approved in there?
It didn't say anything.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's under board approved, and then there's all
Okay.
these starred ones.
Well, that's what I was looking for. And then there was just a typo down in the second paragraph. The treasurer invited the board, not to board.
Okay, if we want
But
to
that's
approve
it.
them as amended, then I can amend that?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
I think sometimes when I read it on the iPad, I miss things.
We have refunds, motor vehicle refund for fiscal year 16 for the amount of $495.42. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We need to sign for the November 8th, 2016 election warrant. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there's 5 copies, so start you with 1 copy. Start you with 1 copy.
Okay, see if we can keep this straight. I'll put mine that I sign up there, all right?
Yep.
And anything that comes back with 3 signatures, I'll put there.
That's got 3. And we got 1 more. You, take this from you. And you sign this one. And this one's all signed.
And that one just is Chris.
And this is yours. Take these 3. Okay, we have a request for Cub Scout Pack 15 to use town meeting office space on the 1st and 3rd Wednesday through June of 2017. So the question is, do we have space?
We do. I'd have to schedule them around. It's going to be a little tighter if that smaller meeting room is used for historical storage.
I don't think that would happen anyway until the spring, at a minimum.
Okay.
Is that the room at the end on the left?
No, it's the
midway
little
down
tiny
the right,
one.
Okay,
right past the assessor's office.
all right.
Do I hear any other comments on this?
No,
Nope.
I'd move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. It is approved. The Council on Aging is requesting a waiver of the town fee for the 2017 Meals Wagon Food Service License
Move to
renewal.
pass over. That's a fee that's charged by the Board of Health.
Okay. That was fast. Conservation Commission requests the town to waive pay taxes on the Oberg parcel. Let's see. The Conservation has all the pieces in place to purchase the 80-acre Oberg parcel on the east face of Mount Pisgah. The trust was expecting to close this fall. However, the town needs to wait until the grants, we applied for $125,000, are announced by the USDA, which won't happen until May or June next. The trust wants the town to waive or pick up the taxes on the property between now and whenever we close.
I don't think we can just like do that, unless we could pay it out of Selectmen's expenses. I don't even think then. I mean, it sounds to me as though they need to amend the purchase and sale to provide for that. Walter, we're talking about the Oberg property.
Okay.
You want to come up because you have an
sure.
interest in this, I think?
Yep.
We were talking about a request to, waive or pay the taxes, and
Yeah,
the selectmen
okay.
don't have the capacity to do that.
Okay.
I mean, one way to do that is to simply amend the purchase and sale so that on closing, the purchase price is increased by the amount of taxes.
Okay. That's the way to do it then.
I think that's the way to do it. If you have the money in the conservation fund, then you can do that.
We do. Would you people support that, since you appoint us? It's the,
No, I know we've been chasing that lamp, man.
we've been after that, that's the kingpin of, no, what's the word I want?
Linchpin.
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 Keystone. No, okay, if that's the way to do it and nobody objects, we'll do it that way. Great.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I don't
that's...
have an issue.
No, I don't either.
Yeah, and as I say, we know you've been chasing that for a long time.
Yep,
Yeah, so I think that's the way to do it.
okay.
Yeah, we don't have the capacity to like waive people's taxes. Otherwise, people will be in here asking us to do that all the time.
Waive my own.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Okay. One more thing. Appointment of the administrative secretary as a townside query screener.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mary.
Okey doke. We have a 7:10 appointment with the Town Hall Advisory Committee regarding the elevator project. Come forward. Tom, you should come up too.
Yes.
Okey doke. So, we're here because you're short money.
Right.
Do you want me to summarize this? Or would you like to speak to the board?
Either way. So we put the project out to bid as directed by the Selectmen in July. We had a little bit of less money from the grant than we expected, so the Selectmen at that point felt that we would reduce the scope of the project and add an alternate. Those numbers have come in, and as of September 8th, we have a range of bidders, and the low bid for the base project is $90,000 more than the available funds. So the last time, we have some information here, which we gave you a week ago or so.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Which shows where the available funds are and how the town has supported the project fairly well from 2009. And the last we knew, we met with the FinCom, and Thomas was there, but you weren't able to make it.
Right.
Yeah. And at that point, there was a suggestion that the $90,000 would come out of mitigation funds to be able to meet the bid and accept it.
Okay.
And that bid is due in a few days.
Right. Yeah, I could say a couple of things here. It's always possible to go to people and ask if they can extend, a bid offer period. That's not a mandatory thing. I mean, the counterparty has to be willing to do that. So if we wanted to delay the bid opening, we would have to ask, and that would be really at the pleasure of the counterparty. We've had the experience of considerable inflation, in bid estimates. What's the figure on that?
20%.
Yeah.
Over 18 months.
Over 18 months. So I have a real concern that, passing up this bid, we're going to be, even further from the goal the next time there's a bid. The advisory committee also looked at ways to further scale down the project. There's a certain amount of stuff that has to be done internal, to the building. Door handles, banisters, and that sort of thing. We looked into that to see if we could phase the thing to do a sort of a phase one, which would give you, the sort of major access and the things that were necessary, obviously, to make that access practical, just within the building. And then to drop some of those other things that were not closely related into a phase two, with the idea that we could fund those over, a matter of months or years. However, when they looked at that, the amount of the savings was only around $10,000 or $11,000, so that was not going to, and it's complicated because we'd have to ask for a provisional occupancy permit, et cetera. Now, all of those things could be done.
You'd have to go
if it was-
rebid if you're gonna do that, wouldn't you? I mean, if you're gonna start cutting things out,
But it's a moot point because it really doesn't, and possibly that. I'm really not sure that is the case, but we don't really have to go there because there's really no opportunity
to say,
to carve this off and to phase it in such a way that it would get us to the figure without having to go for substantially that 90,000 from some other source. The discussion that we had with FinCom last week, we noted the fact that this 90,000 is currently in a gift account by the Selectmen, and technically, as everybody knows, we have the ability to spend that, but also we have indicated that we would go through the budget process and look to the budget process as our guidance for spending out of that account. In the discussion with FinCom, they indicated that as a sort of a baseline and as a sort of fail-safe resort, that they would support the idea of taking that out of the mitigation funds. It would still leave us with approximately $150,000 in the mitigation fund, which if we decided we wanted to parcel it out over small projects or programs is still a meaningful sum of money. We discussed the fact that to delay this at this point or to terminate at this point means that we're giving up basically $250,000 of state funds for the project, and also approximately $105,000, if I remember correctly, that we have spent already on the project. So it would represent a sort of a net loss of $350,000, to abandon the project at this time. We discussed the fact that currently there was no special town meeting planned for the fall, or for that matter, for just after the first of the year. I wasn't aware, and I don't think, I haven't heard anything since then, that there's any town board or project that, would require a special town meeting. And so far, there isn't an external project or whatever, that would require it. We would not have to expend these sums until after, the annual town meeting. So it would be, it would be certainly possible to put this on the annual town meeting. It would also be possible, if we wanted to, we could call a special town meeting on this. Certainly, if one happened, I, would suggest that we put this on it. But given all of that, and given the fact that we have funds available that can legally be spent, and given the fact that we have a lot of money on the table, and I think the reasonable expectation that if this stuff went out to rebid, the price would go up and not down. I'm certainly in favor of accepting the bid at this point.
Well, unfortunately, we can't sign a contract unless we have the money.
And we do.
Well, but that money that is in the mitigation fund, we promised before the town that we would not spend without a town meeting, without town approval. And so this would be breaking that promise. And there's no guarantee that when you go to town meeting that they're going to approve the money.
No, there's no guarantee. I think
So-
there's a history that shows, and a legal capacity to spend the money. If we didn't have a legal capacity to spend the money, I would say, yeah, we have a problem. We are certainly depending upon the town meeting, not to throw away $350,000, but I'm
Well,
willing to take that chance.
you have until November of 2018 to spend that money. And I don't think we're going to throw the whole project away, but I personally, after getting council's opinion today, feel that we should go and approach the low bidder and see if they would extend that bid to be usable for, say, 90 days and have a special town meeting.
Do we have to then extend it for all, or just a low bidder?
Council's opinion was the low bidder, was it not?
I attached it to this appointment. The folded up piece of paper right there.
The town could seek additional funding to make up the shortfall. If the town chooses this option, in my opinion, the town can request that the low bidder
Okay.
agree to hold its bid price open for a short period of time. For example, 30 to 60 days, while the town seeks to obtain additional funding at a special town meeting.
Yes, when is the close on this?
Saturday?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, my concern is that we lose that bid, and,
Would that be with adjusting what they're bidding on to, or no?
no, you can't adjust.
Just leave it.
You-
They would just leave
Just
it-
an
leave
extension.
it
have to be
open.
bid entirely if you're
Yeah.
going to make any adjustments.
Antonellis has called after every selectmen's meeting since the bid's closed for an update.
Who did?
The low
company.
bidder.
Okay.
I certainly don't mind doing it that way. I mean, I do think that, we have to look at the sort of hard dollars, and I would not, I wouldn't want sort of excessive punctiliousness here to end up costing the town several tens of thousands of dollars. But I certainly wouldn't mind doing that. I'd suggest that we go out and ask for that extension, and I also suggest that we post a meeting between now and the time that the bid was closed to consider it again in the event that they did not accept an extension, so that we could consider a Plan B.
Well,
We have a town officers meeting on Thursday night, but I couldn't post that now, because that would have been at 7.
I'm going on Friday for the weekend.
Well, you could post it for 8 o'clock.
True, if I got on right now, I could.
Well, yeah, well, so Chris, what's your opinion?
Well, I think it's really important that you keep your promise about taking it to town meeting. And you have to think of the residents too, and the voters, and I don't think, there'd be some people that would not look fondly upon us if we just voted to use the money.
No, I would indicate to you, first of all, that we're agreeing to accept a bid at this
Right,
point.
Right.
I was not proposing that we spend that money before there was a town meeting, either special or annual. I'm just talking about accepting the bid.
Just a point, I may be out of turn here, but if we accept the bid and wait until the annual town meeting, I believe the bid was set based on the fact that they could start at the very end of the winter, the beginning of the spring.
Correct.
So that would put them into a July start, which I
No,
don't
no,
think
no.
would impact.
No, I don't,
No?
we don't have to pay them all right at the beginning,
But
correct?
you can't
I don't-
sign a contract.
I don't think you
Yeah,
can sign a
unless you
contract.
have
with
the
a
money.
special
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, but again,
That's what I'm concerned.
what I'm saying is, what we have here is, an, if you will, an administrative promise to run this thing through the annual, through the quote-unquote normal budget process. I mind you, we have already talked to FinCom about this, and I would also put in mind that FinCom spent out of this budget without, going through Selectmen, so they, I mean, there's already been some honor in the
But
breach of
they
this.
spent it, but they spent it at town meeting.
But they didn't look at the
They recommended.
the recommended process because it was a gift account, What I'm saying here is that from a legal point of view, this is in a gift account. The selectmen have the legal power to spend that. We have the legal power to spend that, even if, because what we promised was we would go through the budget process, even if a special town meeting or an annual town meeting voted this down, we have the legal power to spend out of that account. And that's why I think we can in good faith sign a document and then go through the process of putting this, to the people for choice, but.
Well, I fail to see how signing, to me, it's not good faith to the people in the town. Because in good faith, they accepted that we would, and repeatedly we said we would never spend this money without town meeting approval. And you're saying that we're gonna spend this money, but then we're gonna ask them for approval. Well,
Well, because again, we have particular facts and circumstances here. We had a really unusual and unpredicted increase in the cost of this. We had a very good state award, but a state award that was less than we were hoping for when we went to town meeting the last time. We have a bid, and so I say, we have an administrative promise that we made. I also believe that we have a fiduciary duty to the town to do this in an economical way, to move along a project that has been supported again and again and again, without, and again, if we can get, here's what I'm saying, if we can get an extension of this bid for 60 or 90 days, I'm cool with that. Let's have a special town meeting and let's do that. But if not, then I think we are faced with a fiduciary decision. Do we honor the absolute step and order of a gratuitous promise? Or do we consider the, financial, cost to the town and the future of a project that has been supported again and again and again by town meeting in various ways? So that's to me the question, that there are two sides to it. One is the fiduciary duty to manage this within our powers, and the other is to honor that gratuitous promise, which I think we should do unless it's going to cost us a significant sum of money.
It's not going to cost us any money. If you go out to bid a second time and schedule a special town meeting for the period of time when you have the bid results, which would be the same.
Well, this bid will not be out, once this bid is closed, it's open season again. This bid could go up 10%, it could go down 10%. It could go up 20%,
Or
it
we
could
could go
go...
out to bid with a finite number, which you say, right? Can you not go out to bid and say, this is the number that we have? No?
No, it doesn't matter what we have, it's what
They're gonna
price
come
they're
back
willing
at?
to do the work for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I believe in this project totally, but I also believe in things that I stood up in front of town meeting and said.
Oh, yeah, and again, I believe in both those things too, and when you have two sides of a thing that need to be reconciled, that's when you have to make a choice. And again, I think we do have a fiduciary duty to the town to preserve the town's resource, to preserve the town's investment so far.
So what do you do, Tom, if you go to town meeting and it gets voted down?
Then I would say we would have to honor the contract and spend the money. We have the legal capacity to do that. I don't really expect that to happen because this thing has been supported again and again and again. If this was a project that had not been up before town meeting and had not been supported again and again and again, I might think differently of it.
Okay.
But again, I don't think that's a question that we have to answer tonight. What I'm saying is, I'm happy with a motion that says, can you extend the bid by 60 or 90 days, okay? And we have a special town meeting in the interim. What I'm saying is, I would like to do that, get out right away to see if we can get that extension. If we can't get that extension, then what we're talking about now is what we have to talk about really then, which is we can't get the extension. We can't both honor the gratuitous promise and keep this thing going without costing us money, and now we have a choice, and neither one of them is perfect.
Well, I don't like that you put gratuitous in front of promise, because I don't think it was gratuitous. I think it was an honorable promise.
No, gratuitous simply means it was not legally compelled. That's what it means.
Can I just ask a procedural
Yes.
question on what you're recommending?
Mm-hmm.
And that would be, if you're saying you're gonna wait till Springtown meeting, and if you were to wait to get the vote, are you not then, if this board changes, setting up a decision for a different board that might be sitting there after town meeting? You're making a decision for a newer board? That's the only thing I'm thinking.
No, we're making a decision for this board. The
But you're talking
boards
about
of
the
selectmen
spring.
make decisions in the present,
Only. They can't make it for the
but
future.
all our decisions have an effect in the future. The only thing our decisions can't affect is the past. So if we make a decision and have a vote, that has an effect in the future after a time when, all three of us may not be on the Board of Selectmen. I mean, that's true of almost any action we would take.
It just, I guess, maybe you're jumping ahead on that decision then, I guess, because and I don't, however the town meeting votes is kind of a different thing, but you're making a decision tonight, on what could potentially happen at the May town meeting, which there could be a different board.
The May town meeting has the same
Same
board.
board at the May
Election
town
is the
meeting.
week
Oh.
after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
So,
No, I mean, we're gonna, just for example, we're gonna make a decision on tax
yeah.
tonight that is gonna affect a year when this board may be different, so, that happens all the
That's the
time.
procedure.
Yeah.
Well, then I would like a motion that the town requests that the low bidder agree to hold its bid price open for, and the question is, how long does it take to hold a special town meeting?
How much does it cost to run a special town meeting?
Not an
$100,
appreciable amount.
Isn't it?
I mean,
Is
it's
it
the mailing.
$200?
6 weeks? She's not gonna want it around
The election.
the election.
Well, it's 4 weeks, right?
It'd be helpful if I could
please.
run this past Eloise. I could even try calling her at home, just to get an idea.
Okay, I will make a motion that we request that the low bidder maintain this bid open for the period of time required to promptly organize a special town meeting, not to exceed 90 days. That way we can,
Okay.
Second.
is that fair enough?
Mhm.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion on this?
No, I think you covered it.
Do you want to then not have a discussion about this Thursday night, but at your next meeting, open a
Hang on.
special town meeting warrant? Yeah. Depends on the answer, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, can we take a vote on this
Well,
first?
yes, we should take a vote on this
All in
first.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then we can discuss at the end the idea of, or we should probably discuss it now, the idea of posting a meeting to discuss this at 8 o'clock, shall we say?
Thursday.
8 o'clock
On
Thursday night.
Thursday evening, in the event that,
So this is when we have a town officers meeting?
yes, we'd step out of it. And the agenda item would be to, discuss what we do in the event they're not willing to keep the bid open. Because I agree, if they can keep the bid open and we can have the special town meeting, that's the best way to do it.
So depending on the answer,
From
we may or may not
the cons-
even need
Yeah,
this meeting.
we can step
Correct.
out of town meeting
Right,
and adjourn this meeting
Right.
totally at that point.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Who calls Antonelli? Should we do that?
Do you feel comfortable? Who's been
I've
dealing
already
with
talked to
them?
him a couple of times. I'm happy to ask him, but I don't know if there needs to be something official from town.
We can type up a request and have that,
Yeah.
ready for him or
I
email
think
that
if I
to
can
him.
just say one thing from the bidder's perspective, the bidders were planning on starting construction in the spring.
Mhm.
So they already are planning within, in terms of their scheduling, lining up subcontractors and their prices, not, doing anything until spring. But they do need to, in order to organize that stuff and commit to it, they will want to commit to a project as soon as possible.
Yep.
So I don't think that he would have a problem, it sounds like he really wants to do the job. He's not planning to start until the spring, so I think there's not really a problem with him extending. The only question is how long. I think 90 days is getting a little long. The sooner the meeting can be held, the better.
Yeah, no, I-
Where does 90 days put us at in terms of months?
Well,
We have to
October,
do here.
Yeah,
Oh,
That's-
yeah.
I only,
so,
I
As I
would,
said, the
I would
first part
think
of it
that
is-
would be,
so the sooner
to
that they
properly
can
organize,
be.
yes.
Yeah,
I just put 90
right.
to,
So the sooner the town meeting,
if somebody can talk to Eloise,
Normally, about 30 days, you can organize the town meeting.
yeah, I would think so.
so I would think it would probably be
30
within a
days from
60
now is
day.
in the midst of the national election, which the town clerk is can't deal with, so you're gonna have to go off a week or two, a
Yeah.
couple of weeks after that before she's gonna be in a position to deal with it.
Yeah.
But we ought to be able to do it before the end of November or by the 1st of December.
Yep,
Okay.
That would be,
Thanksgiving.
And then once the town
16
meeting, if
days.
it's approved at town meeting, then there's no other further steps, right?
No.
That's it.
that's it.
Is this future spending, not FY17 spending?
This is actually, this is proposed as spending out of a mitigation fund.
Okay, so it's
Yeah, it's not out of the
Won't impact the
levy
tax rate.
taxes, no. Okay. All right.
Okay,
We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
oh, I forgot mine, oh well. Okey-doke. Next up, we have a continuation of the public hearing for the tax classification. This was continued from September 26th at 7:30 to tonight at 7:30. So if the assessors would like to come up.
Just so in case we get rowdy.
Right. Detail time here.
All right.
Oh, sorry. So, I think this is what you were looking for?
Okay, so tonight, we have the ability to set the tax rate. Is that true?
Do we have all the certifications you need now?
Well, the tax rate's not really set till you sign.
No, I understand.
But
Yes,
you have
my-
everything.
All of my side of the valuation stuff has all been approved.
Great, because we're still looking for one piece
Yep.
last week. Yep,
We
okay.
finally got that.
Good.
And, so, did you say that you had, did she open the hearing? or-
Yeah.
Okay. So, even though you weren't here, we've been here twice.
Well, I did try to listen to one, and it was very fuzzy audio on it.
Oh,
But Mary did give me the paperwork, and I've looked through it, so I guess,
so at the last,
has anything changed from this one?
The newer one might be easier to read.
Well, I do have some questions. Should I ask them first?
sure.
Yeah, why don't you?
So it looks like the value of residential has gone up 9%.
Correct. It will between 6 and 10%
Well, I was
on
just,
average.
I'm
yeah.
presuming that the 401,000 is the average price of a single-family home, and that went up from 363,000,
Right.
okay?
That's due to the revaluation that we just went through, that we were waiting for our certification on.
Okay. And then, well, then maybe these numbers changed. It looked like, it looked like to me from FY16, if you just use the same value with the FY17, that the tax rate would be going up about 7.8%. So if I have an average, my house, whose of average value went from 363,700 to 401,000, my tax increase is $460 on my average. I'm just looking at it,
At which shift?
to keep the tax rate the same,
At the
at
30?
1585, at the 34%.
Okay. It's the
Yeah,
34, it's about 589.
Use this one?
Yeah,
Well, my
this
numbers
one's
are on
better.
this one.
This might explain it right there. So if you look along the bottom, the very bottom row,
Okay,
you'd be at 1548. And
idea.
right?
Yeah, if you could slide across.
I was just trying to calculate how, in my house, how much would my taxes have gone up?
So if you kept it
Radio.
at the 30%, your taxes would go up 686.19, based on the newer, I don't know which sheet you have.
Just slide over one column.
Okay.
Last row would be $441, your taxes would go up.
If you did the 40% shift,
Right.
which Tom had asked me last week to see where it leveled off, which would be that 40%, because then the residential percent change is 7.64 and the commercial is 7.79.
Yeah, we looked at, Judy, we looked at a couple of scenarios. We looked at keeping the tax rate the same.
Mm-hmm.
We looked at keeping the split the same. And then what we looked at was, and then we didn't have this last week, but what we asked for was to calculate what the split would be to keep the percentage in tax rates the same for residential and commercial, the actual, percentage in the dollar increase. Because, as we talked about it last week, we thought, looking at, sort of the breadth of the playing field here, that certainly under these circumstances, we probably didn't want to go with a commercial split that was, less than we had last year because of, the shift of taxes that occurs because of the valuation. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we thought we certainly wouldn't probably want to increase the actual percentage of the dollar value of taxes more for commercial than residential. That perhaps the most we'd want to go was to have the percentage, raised the same. So what we were trying to do by getting those two figures and getting these splits was to say, okay, that's the sort of range, and where do we want to fall in the range? So that was the thinking last week.
All right. Well, it looked to me that commercial was significantly lower in the increase than residential when I looked at
Right.
it.
That's why we.
Because of the valuation.
do this.
Right.
Because of the shift that occurs with the valuation. And that's why when we went, we asked her to calculate what shift would you have to get to have the actual, again, these are
40%.
average, 40% would have to be the split to give you a commercial tax increase that was, again, as a percentage of the bill, that would be roughly equal to the residential. And again, what we thought, Judy, was that was
Yeah.
that end of the spectrum that we would want to go to. Keeping everything the same would be the low end of the spectrum, because we probably wouldn't want to reduce the split in a time when the valuation had already shifted taxes to residential. So we were really looking.
But the other
Yeah.
piece is that town meeting spent more money within the levy limit,
Right.
so that was gonna
That
make the
increased
taxes
everybody.
gonna go up anyhow.
Yep. So basically, what we're looking at is the difference between a 30 to 40% split, and that's what she put together in this column. So-
Well, and a 40% split brings residential down to 63% and ups commercial to 30%, which I'm looking at the back one here,
Yeah. Correct.
which I kind of find a little bit on the scary side, given some of our commercial properties are sad.
Right, and again, what we were looking to is get these figures, because again, we thought that would be the most we would ever want to do.
Well, you can
and
only go up to
30% was the least.
150.
Exactly, I understand that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're jumping 10% from
No.
last year to this year,
I don't think so.
No, well, again, we were looking at that as a benchmark, that's what the split we would have to do to give an equal sort of tax bill percentage to the average commercial property.
in your, I mean, your commercial property runs from 400,000 to 31 million. So that 22.39 million is really just sort of a benchmark. It's not.
Do you understand this?
Mostly. I did have a question, though, from the email that was sent about, from the DOR. They had directives.
Oh, okay. I didn't actually study them, but go ahead.
Okay, there was one directive called the income and expense data,
Correct.
and I didn't know whether you could explain that.
We send out income and expense questionnaires to all the commercial property every year. A lot of people are owner occupied, so we don't get any good information from that. The rest of them, it's what they give us, that we have no powers other than to, if we go to court, then we can demand it, but other than that, it's more or less a, we're asking for it.
They're not gonna tell you what it is.
Well, I wasn't quite clear on, were
Yes.
those directives for you
It's-
to work on?
No,
Or
well,
did
that's
they work
sort of a standard.
The standard answers?
The INE and
Uh-huh.
the cyclical data are standard
Right.
almost in every city and town in the state.
Okay,
We sent them, I think, we sent second requests. We've called people if we really think that we need more information, and we don't really have any other kind of statutory regulations to be able to get it, statutory powers to demand it. We can just request it. So it's like, the more good data you have coming in, the better the data has going out.
Okay.
Otherwise, we have to rely on area studies. There's lots of publications that
right.
do what rental information is available mostly for companies looking to rent something, but we use that data as backup if we have nothing else
Okay.
to look at.
And does the Board of Assessors have a recommendation?
No. That's why we're here.
That would have been my second question.
Well, I guess I'm leaning, although I don't really want to shift anymore, to keeping the tax rate level, which moves it up to 34%. People see how much they spent. I mean, the house valuation has gone up, but,
How is our split comparatively speaking with other towns close by?
Everybody else is a quarterly town, so I could only look at last year's information. It's not this year's, because they won't be setting their tax rate till December. So
Right.
I didn't,
So last year's was,
I did look it up, but then it didn't seem like I was comparing
apples to
chicken,
apples.
yeah,
okay, apples to chickens,
yeah.
yeah.
So I didn't bring that forth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm pretty sure commercial rate is higher in Hudson.
Oh, they definitely are.
Yeah.
Northborough, I don't think has a split rate. But Marlborough does, I
Marlboro
believe.
does.
Well, I'm willing to make a motion that we have the split at 1.34, aiming to keep the rate the same, and let the allocation based on valuation fall where it falls.
1.34?
So it keeps the tax rate at 1585, which is what it is for FY16.
Roughly, yeah. 1588 per now.
And originally, we had asked about the 40%.
I'd only ask for that again, to give a range, to say I mean, one way to look at it is let's keep the rate the same. The other is spread the percentage increase in the tax bill
Right.
so that it hits commercial and residential equally, again, as a percentage of the
Right.
tax bill. And I knew that that would obviously jack up the split significantly, but I thought for purposes of our understanding, the range of things, that was
Right.
the upper end of what we could, I think conceivably responsibly do. So that was the reason I asked for that, just to see, well, what would we have to do to do that? And it's a pretty big split shift from
Yeah.
last year.
Well, I take it back, so we're at 65, that would put us at 65% residential and 28.9% commercial in terms of tax burden. That's, residential is much lower than I thought it was. Well, yeah, I guess I would agree with the shift, 34%.
And I'd also note that sort of goes halfway to, a complete sharing of, tax bill increase. So I think it's a reasonable compromise.
I need to inform you of the excess levy capacity is at 496,480. And last year it was at 610,600. So that 200,000 is that extra money that you spent at town meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
And so you're going to adopt a residential factor of
Well, we need to take, did I hear a motion on that?
I had made the motion.
Second?
Okay.
So the residential factor is going to be 88.3357.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then I just have to have you sign this. And I'm sorry I had to write it because I didn't know what you were going to say.
We didn't either.
And so this will go on to the recap sheet with June tomorrow, and we should be able to submit and hopefully get an answer
Do we
by
have 2 copies?
Friday. No, it's two pages,
Yeah.
but the signatures are on the second page.
Oh, I signed it in the middle, so you can sign it to the left.
Oh, well, here. I don't think it makes.
So is this, like for next year, would this be a better scenario to do than?
I think it's a helpful scenario, again, because to me, what it does is it gives you a range of scenarios, that to me span the really likely possibilities. Anything we did out of that kind of range would be really
Yeah, because I just wanted
dramatic.
to make it so that
Yeah,
I give you the information that you
yeah.
understand and need.
I did fine with it. I had my calculator out. But this is fine too.
Any more questions?
Thank you, guys.
No thanks.
Renovation.
Thank you.
Included in my, right?
Thank you. Thanks for all the work that went into that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Let's see. 8 o'clock. All right, we have 5 minutes to a meeting at 8. And what is number 8? Consideration of review of tax status for selectmen?
This is the issue about whether we get reports and so on taxes and unpaid taxes in part of the licensing process. I suggest that we could maybe defer that one either to the end of the meeting or to a later one, because we've got a pretty full agenda tonight.
Okay. Well, for number 9, update of the OPM division, I talked to Keith and I'm fine with how he's doing things. So I guess this is holding up his permit.
Okay, I'm okay with it too.
Yeah, I spoke with him also.
Okay. So Mary, if you can inform.
No, we had held off because I know you had some strong feelings about that, and we wanted you to get back.
So we waited for you.
Oh, thank you. It's very kind of you. All right, we can skip 10 for a minute. Skip 11.
We can do that at the end too, right?
13.
Actually, why don't we, 13?
Oh, we have like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
I want to start. 495, Metro West Partnership request a letter of support for its grant and an offer to visit. I think we've previously just given them a letter, haven't we?
Yep. And it's the same, it's fairly innocuous
annual?
letter. Yeah.
Annual item.
Yeah.
I would move to approve issuing the letter.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I'm just gonna hit the measure.
Okey-doke. Try to wait. Some of this. All right. Public hearing, LSP. All right. All right, so we have a meeting with Maplewood and the town LSP about a request for a Department of Environmental Protection, ACO, oversight of earth importation. I guess you're the
Yep.
requesting parties,
Yeah. And,
and we have our LSP.
yep.
All right, well, so why don't you explain what it is that you're requesting?
I think it's self-evident in the letter. It's a technical request to change, to actually make the procedures a little bit more restrictive for bringing soils onto the property, and that by adhering to that, those rules or that, I guess, process, we get certified and it'll give us access to other sources of materials.
I don't
Is that
know, what letter are you, do you have a letter that he's referring to? I don't have a letter here.
Yeah, the one that was sent back in June.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had one,
We've had it for,
If you give me the packet, I think it's in the packet.
That's as much as I could find.
Yeah, but while we're looking for that, I could say that it's a letter we have looked at before. It's evidencing support of, local support and an expression of any conditions that we are concerned with in them issuing the administrative compliance order.
Well, I guess I'm confused on exactly what an administrative, I've read the department, the DEP version, which is pretty, the interim policy for
Yeah,
reuse.
that's not actually the one that applies to us.
Well, I couldn't find any other
Yeah.
policy they
You want
had.
maybe George
Yeah,
can speak to that.
right.
George, by the way, George Naslis is our licensed site professional who has been working with us since this was an issue since forever, it seems. And most recently, because the Federal District Court settlement between the town and Maplewood provided for the town to be able to review and approve by reviewing the documentation and working with the delivering and receiving site professionals to review and approve deliveries of soil to that property. So George has been overseeing that, and so he was a natural person to get involved in this ACO. Let me just say a couple of things. Obviously, at first, I kind of wondered why, why would you guys want to do this? Because it obviously imposes some conditions that are not even there in the court settlement. While you were gone, there was some talk about this, and
What conditions does it impose that aren't in the settlement?
Monitoring wells is one of them.
Yep.
Is that it?
Yeah, it's going to, from what I recall from the original letter that you guys sent was, well, let's back up.
Yeah.
So the way it works right now is, we've been involved for a couple of years, really from the time when the dispute was going on and then post-settlement. Our job at Weston and Sampson is to review the data packages that are provided for the various soil shipments. They've come from a number of projects, construction-related projects. Sometimes it's road work, bridge repair, things like that. And our job, as we see, is to evaluate the data and see if it matches the soil management protocols that we've established. And the rules we're following are called a similar soils policy that DEP's come out with, and that really came out a few years ago to clarify what was loosely called the anti-degradation policy before, which basically means you can't take dirty stuff and put it where it's clean. We're also talking about a universe of soils that generally are below, they call them less than S1 soils, and S1 is the most strict standards, and you could technically, from a risk point of view, have them in your backyard. So we're looking at soils that really don't have too much, contamination. I don't want to use that word, I use that word guardedly. So we look at the data, we look at the background for the site, we look at the similar soils policy and give a thumbs up, thumbs down. We also talk to the RLSPs, and we've had many, many conversations about if there's a data gap, can you clarify this? If I know the site, a lot of times I know the sites where they're coming from because they're they're pretty close to where we are. We go and have a look at them. If I feel the data isn't representative of what's coming off site, then we've rejected them. And there's been a few we've rejected. We've actually built a pretty good working relationship with Lighthouse now because they know the questions we're always going to ask. And so now, of late, the data packages that have been coming to us are a little bit better. They kind of have answered those questions, anticipating some of those questions. So I think to date we've looked at about 12 or 14 packages, something like that. I was trying to get an exact number before I came. So what's different? seems to me what they want to do is formalize this process through DEP and set up an administrative consent order, which basically sets out the terms for this process in a formal manner and documents it through this process called an ACO, Administrative Consent Order. So there's some upside for the town in that this means that, one, this is on DEP's radar, two, that they have some input during the ACO process. One of the additional things that was in that, and so the process, the ACO process, is basically a negotiation between you and DEP. One thing we looked at some preliminary information, and obviously the terms of the settlement need to be wrapped into that agreement with DEP, and I believe you're looking for some support from the town so that, DEP understands that this is a process that everybody understands. One of the additional measures that you agreed to was to put a monitoring well, or one or two monitoring wells, down gradient of, and at a location to be determined, which is a good thing. That's something that obviously a lot of the concerns when a lot of soil is coming in is, is anything being released from these soils, and can they get into our groundwater, and can they eventually get to where somebody has a drinking water well? So we see that as a positive sign that there's some measure of early warning, if you like, that's going to be part of this process. You mentioned access to additional soils. What kind of additional soils?
No, some of my understanding, I'm not an expert, but my understanding is that some sites some suppliers only go through this process.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm referring to.
So as we were having these discussions with your LSPs and understanding this process, because I was the same. All right, well, so what's in it? What's in it for you? Why would you go through this process? I understand, because it puts this facility on the map. On it's not, that DP knows this site is out there. It's not an unregulated, facility. I also try to put my hat on if I'm one who's trying to move soil off a site that I'm managing. And from my perspective, if a site has an ACO, I would definitely feel more comfortable as an LSP that my soil's going somewhere that there's some control. So I get it. I understand why you want to go that route, and I think it's a good thing. I really do. We've had a number of conversations, Thomas and I, about this, and all right, what are the flaws? Is there something there that would be detrimental? And I don't think so, because the process that we're already following, we are one of the checks and balances, right, in this process. That's not going to change. So we're still going to be reviewing the packages. None of that will change. So that's the process, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Yeah, I just also had, I think the other thing that's in for the town is that this puts, the DEP on very firm sort of regulatory and, regulatory review and footing on this, unlike just having a regulation out there.
Yeah.
So it really does systematize that, and that to me is a big advantage. Currently, right now, if we started to have problems, our recourse would be to go to court and, try to get an injunction because you were violating, the settlement order. This gives us a sort of, an interim administrative, level where you can go to the DEP and indicate the violation of the administrative consent order. And, I'd rather initially be able to go, to, an administrator in the DEP than, have to, suit up and go to court and get. So I see the fact that everything that's in the settlement order, everything that's in the regulation, that is more stringent than the settlement order would be brought into this. We know we have the monitoring wells, which is something we were interested in the settlement, but we couldn't get there.
Yeah.
And to me, the reason that they want to do it sounds credible to me, that places, particularly places that have clean sources, don't want to put their material in places that doesn't have really demonstrable controls, because they're worried that the next truck in is going to bring in something ugly, and anybody who brought a truck in there is going to end up in court. So, you know, the fact that this is important to high-quality source sites is I think, you know, is I think important.
How does DEP monitor? I mean, I've read all these articles talking about their lack of response to towns when they call them. I mean, I guess that's part of my worry is the DEP part of it.
Well, I think that might be a question for DEP, honestly, but what I've read some of the articles, if you're talking about Uxbridge and what was going on there. That's a very different situation that I could see, because I read the same articles, and that was really just seems like a bit of a free-for-all. And I think the fact that, number one, that you had a negotiation early on and established some checks and balances is a great thing. I think this adds another layer of comfort, if that's the right word. I don't know in the ACO if DEP is going to require reporting, because there's only been a few of these that they've done for this type of facility. It's not a landfill. It's not it's basically a place to bring in they call them these less than S1 soils, receiving facilities, and there's been a few around the state, but there's not been too many. So that would be something that might come up in their negotiation. So I don't know what DEP is going to require from a reporting point of view. I would imagine they'd require some documentation to go to them.
I mean, if there's monitoring wells, it doesn't do anything unless they're doing some sort of testing on them.
Yeah.
And, you read this article and it sounds like they don't have the money to do a lot of testing. I guess what
Judy,
is
it doesn't take away what we already have.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that if you put in wells, and this is a plus.
Yeah.
It's not a plus if there isn't any testing going on to the.
No, there's testing that, I don't know what they have to do, but do you know the regulation on how often
well,
they have
I guess
to?
my question is, how do you come about with one? Do we meet with you and DEP and work something out? I mean, what is the process for all this?
So
it's unclear to me how it.
So there is on these less than S1 facilities, there's no rule that says you have to test so many times. This will be, the fact they're putting in a monitoring well will be something that will be part of that negotiation with DEP, and then how often that is monitored, which be by you guys.
Is that, would we be the ones who would be doing the testing?
I don't think so. I don't see why that should be a burden on you. We would happily review the data for you, but that would be something that they would, I assume, have to do.
I guess, I just don't understand how this process works. They're requesting one, but then who negotiates it?
They
DEP
negotiate
with
DEP with the
Lighthouse?
proponent, and that creates it.
So we don't have any input into this.
Well, you do, because they're asking for a letter of support from the town. So one of the things that we talked about was making sure that the terms of the settlement are in there, and that can be added into that letter of support, or that we want some input as the ACO is negotiated. I mean, that would be really up to you guys.
And we can certainly say that.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Well, no, we.
Right? I mean, this is a letter of support saying we want to incorporate the
So I don't want to speak for DEP because, there's nobody here that I know of from DEP Central Region, but I think if I put myself in their shoes, I think I'd want to see an ACO set up, because then DEP has knowledge of this facility, because right now there's a lot of facilities that are up there. What they're doing in Uxbridge didn't seem to violate any law, but it obviously it didn't leave anyone with a comfortable feeling other than the person making money on the trucking and whatnot. So I think, from DEP's perspective, I think they want these facilities to get under an ACO, then we know about them. So I think your real question is, all right, how do we make sure that there is some monitoring in there and we can see that data? Maybe that's something that maybe you need to work out with you guys as you get into that negotiation, or maybe you put in your letter of support that we support this. We've seen that what has been proposed, and we'd like to see this in the ACO.
Yeah, it's certainly possible to put in to the letter of support that we would request, the ability to have, our professional review, the preliminary ACO and make suggestions, and that we have particular concerns with that it detail the testing of the monitoring wells, if that's what you want to put in. That's not a problem.
okay.
So it's like another layer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't
Well, it
change
is.
what you have already. And what you have, is a good check and balance. Like I said, we've rejected a number of packages because it was one, I just knew the site. It didn't feel right. There's been a couple of others where there was just some data gaps. And now working with Lighthouse, on a number of these now, they know what we're thinking, what questions we're going to ask. And I've actually been on one where they said, we decided to send that somewhere else because we didn't have the answers. There's liability all the way through, for the generator, for the transporter. So again, I put myself in their shoes. When I stamp a package that leaves a site that I'm managing and going somewhere, I need to be sure I know where it's going. And we have 7 LSPs at Weston and Sampson, and we've had a lot of discussions about where we feel comfortable sending material and where we don't. So I understand where the LSP's coming from when they're saying, yeah, we feel it's okay to send. Well, okay, that's good, but let us check, let us make sure that we feel comfortable too. So when you're looking at soils and the universe of contaminants that might be in soils, what I worry a lot about is anything that can leach down into groundwater, right? We worry about solvents, we worry about petroleum. And to date, we haven't seen any of those on anything, and we probably wouldn't approve a package if there was. And I don't think your LSPs would try and send that either, because they understand the liability side of it.
And that will stay in place, because that's all under the court settlement.
Right.
May I make a suggestion that I work together with George to present a draft for execution next week that preserves, again, we've already have this in there, that preserves the settlement, but also expresses the desire to review the ACO before its final approval, and to indicate our particular concern that the ACO, when we review it, specify the testing that will be done in the test wells. How's that?
Okay.
That was my motion.
I'll second that.
Anything else to say?
I would just say that, I certainly read the Uxbridge stuff and everything, and those are very different situations, when, not unlike the situation that we might have gotten into before we passed, an earth importation bylaw, but those are situations in which, we're beyond, the point where we have the kind of exposures that they were talking about
I think
there.
my main concern in reading those was the article on the Worcester water and his distinct lack of feeling that there was support from DEP. I mean, that article made DEP sound like they didn't have money, time, they weren't returning phone calls, and if that's how they're gonna operate, then
they're a bad second layer, but we still have
It doesn't sound to be, you're not going backwards. Any way you look at it, you're not going backwards. And I would remind you, we've been doing this for about 2 years. I think we've established a good relationship on both sides and a bit of a track record
Yep.
of how the kind of things that we're doing out there. And I see you smiling. I don't know about where that's coming from. You look at me like you're doubting me a little bit. But I think we've had engineers, 3 layers of engineers looking at what's going on, and I think it's gone well.
No, and I've been the selectman who's worked on it on a day-to-day basis and, or event-to-event basis.
Right.
And, my feeling is that it is working, that it's being reviewed, you guys are responsive when there are objections, even with respect to some of the less critical issues like truck routes and stuff like
Truck
that.
routes,
There have been a
street
couple of
cleaning, whatever
glitches,
it
but
is,
when
yeah.
the glitches have occurred, you have been responsive. That's been absolutely the case.
Yeah.
One thing I do know about the ACO is your signing of it doesn't give us the ACO.
No.
It might be a 6-month
this is-
process to get.
This is
from-
a long process, and we have to be approved by the state. So it's just one layer that says the town understands what DP wants to do, and it's just adding that extra layer. And they might get to it and then say, oh, we don't care, but we're not gonna give it to you anyway, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did we take our vote? No.
okay. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I suggest a 5-minute recess before we go into,
No, you can't.
Don't you want to take another trip? Thank you. Thanks.
To come forward.
You guys may not recognize me without camo on. Did you know who came in?
No.
I didn't think so.
You didn't
Do
blend
you have
in.
copies of the resume? Do you need them?
I have them.
You have them?
Okay.
We do.
I grew up in town. I know just about everybody, or did, except for the newer people. Comfortable with most people. I'm going to be 62 in December, and I'd be happy to stay on as your wiring inspector for a couple more years. And then I'm going to be called south.
I hope it's like south
don't know.
in the country.
Either way, I'm going south. Well, I was referring to my grandson's down in Virginia.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I'd be interested in staying on as wiring inspector for, 2 or 3 more years. Like I said, I know most people in town, I know the roads, I probably have done a lot of the work in the houses in town. I have a good report with all the contractors that we use. As you can see, I have been in the trade for 40-something years. Self-employed, I have my own business. Don't do much anymore, but I have it. So, what do we have for questions?
How do you feel about GOTMS?
I am thrilled that we have a clerk that handles the GOTMS. As it stands now, I usually get copies of the building permits and the plumbing permits, but not the electrical permits. So, what that glitch is, I don't know.
You don't have a tablet yet, do you?
No, we were gonna do that 2 or 3 years ago and
Money's still there.
didn't do that, yeah.
And do you feel,
So-
would you feel comfortable using that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, as far as entering, I mean, I have no idea how all that other stuff works that's on there, but like I say, I'm glad that we've got a good clerk, and she doesn't, well, Julie did, and this new girl does a nice job of, I walk in and the permits are sitting there with the information, and it makes it very easy on my end. The only problem with it is, and it's not a big problem because I spend a lot of time in town, you know, is the permits, the GOTMS permits don't get to me until I come in and get them. So it could be a week before I actually get the permits. But in the meantime, the electricians all have my number, and they call me and tell me they've got a job going on, and I'll go down and do the inspection prior to getting the permit in my hand. I don't have a problem with that, especially seeing how I don't have to collect the money. If I was collecting the money, then that might be an issue, but I don't touch the money. The clerk does it all and makes it easy.
Okay.
I do have a lot of stuff on my computer that comes in that I'm not really sure how to store that and empty it and stuff like that.
What
But
sort of stuff do you have?
all the copies of the permits, like I said, I get all the building, plumbing, some of the electrical.
All right, but those are already stored in
Yeah.
the town, these are not.
Those are,
So I don't need to keep them, do I?
You're getting copies of stuff that is,
Yeah,
on your home computer?
yeah.
that is.
Well, on my inspector email, but that goes to my
Right,
WEC
right.
email.
No, the town I mean, these are all sent emails from the town, right?
Yep,
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
record those.
okay. So that was only the question I had, and of course I use my phone for all of it, so that gets backlogged on occasion, but not big deals.
Okay.
Big deals. The, another good thing to mention, I guess, is that knowing most of the people in town, a lot of your wiring is in places that people typically don't want you to see. Your attics, your crawl spaces, your basements. Because I know so many people, I don't get any problems about that. An occasional, oh my God, you're not gonna go in there type thing. But where I know all these people, they feel free to let me go do my inspections, where another guy, they might hesitate about, oh, I don't know you, why don't you wait till my husband's home, and that type of stuff. So we do have a lot of fortune there to be able to go in and inspect when I want and where I want. Yep. Like I say, as far as the contractors, I know most of them, they do what I ask. I brought my code book to show you, that's what we go by. That's 1,000 pages long with all kinds of exceptions to the rule. They make a
How do you
rule.
keep up with that?
I do the electricians, the inspectors mandated class by the state. That's a 6-hour class that they just started a year ago. And I talked with Dennis, we're scheduled to take the next one that Frank Reno provides. He won't know his schedule until November. And then I take the 21-hour licensing class, code class for licensing, and then I take the 6-hour continuing ed class. So that's how we do all of that. And so far, I've taken the classes before I had a budget to work with. So this year, I haven't touched the budget yet. So this year, we actually will put the classes on the budget, like I say, for Dennis and I. Pete's staying on with us, unless you don't want him to, Pete Talby, because I've asked him to. He's not really interested in being the inspector, but where I do travel a little bit, it's nice to have at least a couple of assistants that I can call. Dennis and I have worked fantastically well together. When I'm going to go away, down to see the grandsons or something like that, Dennis, are you going to be around? And he always is, and if he's not, Pete's around. So I don't leave you guys wondering what the heck's going on. There always is coverage. The same with the camp up in Maine. You know, I go up there often, but I'm near a phone or text, and can get all kinds of information that way. So I would like to stay on and continue for you, working for you. I don't know of any major complaints against me. If they did, they didn't tell me. Like I say, I started working with Art Lamy back when he was your inspector, before you guys were in town. Then David Polowatzik, I worked with him. And then, of course, Tom, we've been doing that for I don't know, 30 or so years now. So I would cover for him when he took his motorcycle cross-country a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. Then Pete and I covered for him for the 2 months he was gone in the summer. And so far, haven't had any problems that I know of. So,
So no complaints, no nothing, yep.
well, nobody's complained to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if Mary's got any. I know initially, we were having complaints with the permitting. Just, they were coming, once the
GOTMS.
GOTMS went on, the applicants had the option to choose the cheapest amount of money to pay. Because they can choose the residential $51.50 permit instead of using the commercial one for the value of their work. So when that first came up, we had a lot of problems. She had a lot of problems because she had to correct our mistakes that the contractors would pay the wrong amount. And then I'd tell her and she'd tell them, but we got it worked out. Julie had it going pretty good, and now Leanne is doing very well at it.
Any comments, any special concerns, whatever, in terms of the commercial work that's being done? Clearly, there's
No.
a bunch of that in the pipeline.
Yep, no, I think it's great. That's what I did all the time I worked for Midland Electric Company before I started my own business. It was all commercial, industrial stuff, so to me, it's fun to get back into it again, and I'm glad I'm not doing it, because I don't want to lift and haul the wire and everything else. I think you'd agree with that, Dennis?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they make kids for.
Indeed.
Yeah,
And Pete Telvey.
yeah,
Okay.
you would have him at
He
your
just did
house
our work.
recently, yeah. He said, yeah, that's enough of that. Anything else?
Do you have any questions?
I guess I'm not sure about the timing, like when someone requests to get an inspection, is there a certain period of time when you
Well,
have to be
the
there,
electrical
or-
trade is kind of different from the other trades. The other way, a guy can work without having a permit for 5 days after he's started the job. So in a lot of these small cases, somebody coming to do a little quick job in your house, those guys will come in, do the work, twiddle their thumbs for 4 days, and then say, nobody caught me, I don't need to take out a permit. So we end up doing a lot of police work because I'm in town, I see them, I know what they're doing. So I'm available to do that police work, otherwise you wouldn't have nearly as many permits as you have. But to answer your other question, yes, I have 5 days after I get a call to do the inspection, but being a contractor, I like to go, I know what the time frame means as far as keeping a job going. So when someone calls for a rough inspection, I try to do it that day or definitely the next day.
Yeah.
For instance, Dennis called me at 4 o'clock and said, can you do it? No, he called me this morning and asked if I could do an inspection for him down on Mark Road's project. So this afternoon on my way down to Hudson, I went in and did that one and got that right away, because by tomorrow, Mark will be looking for somebody to put insulation in there. So we do, right? So
Yeah.
we do that just to try to keep the jobs going. So I try to handle them as quick as I get them. And being semi-employed, that's kind of easy for me because I'm not spending 8 hours on a job and having to do it just at night or, on weekends. But the state does allow time
Yeah.
for that. But like I say, I try to get on it right away, get it out of the way, and then.
Well, that's so that, I guess
keep-
I was getting at the organization. How do you stay organized to do these things within the deadlines and that kind of thing? But it sounds like you've got a method.
Yeah, we've got it all
Yeah,
down. And like I say, a lot of these come through before we get the permit.
right.
So I've got little notes all over the place. And don't ask Colleen what their dining room table looks like.
Yeah.
'Cause- But it works. Yeah, then when the permits do come in, I date them and give them to Leanne or Larry, whoever needs them in there to enter it on their computer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Like I said, I'd like to stay and help you for a few more years, and then I'm gonna go play.
All right.
Dennis?
How you doing?
Fine, how are you?
Good. So I've been Henry's assistant for a couple of years now, I think, and I'd be fine staying as his assistant if he stays as the primary electrical inspector. I'm also an inspector in Hudson and in Lancaster, and on-call basis in Marlboro. So I do have experience, and Hudson, I've been doing that since 2010, I think. So.
Okay. And how do you stay updated? I mean, it sounds like you and Henry take some courses together, no?
Oh, yep. As Henry said, inspectors have to take a 6-hour course that the state teaches now. And every code cycle, you have to take a 21-hour course to keep up with the code. So when that code cycle ends, we try to take the course right at the beginning, because you actually have 3 years to be updated on that code.
So when you say code cycle, you mean when the state makes changes to the code, then
Yeah.
you have to be up to date on their changes?
Right, because every 3 years a new code book comes out.
Okay. And you run your own business?
Yes.
You're a very busy person.
Yeah, I physically don't, I have guys that work for me,
Okay.
so it's more of managing things.
Young people who can carry a wire.
A few young ones. Well, crawling in attics.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about GOTMS? Do you have any dealings with that one too? Do you feel, I guess my question really is, do you feel comfortable with like computers? Because eventually you're going to get those.
Yeah. Marlboro actually has Excella. So what happens is they log in the permits, and then I have an app on my phone, and they do it through the app. So that's a great system, because as we're on the job, we just check off, make notes, and it goes back to them. And it's, so I've used.
Acela has purchased GOTMS, so we are Acela.
Okay.
That's a great system. Hudson is still kind of old-fashioned. They just come in, do the inspections, fill out the permits. I go in the morning. I work there 2 days a week in the morning and fill out the paperwork.
Okay.
And the secretaries deal with that. So, but yeah, I'm comfortable with
Computers with apps.
with the app and email.
And obviously, you feel you have time to balance this with your other obligations?
Yep, because everything's down to a schedule, and in Berlin, when Henry does go away, I've been going out last minute and stuff. So yeah, this time, and I'm always in town, so everything's local too.
Okay. And the commercial activity, what's your experience with that? How comfortable are you with that?
Very comfortable. We do quite a bit of commercial work, and it's just, you take it down to a different scale, area by area, not to get overwhelmed, but comfortable. And I've been doing a lot of, like in Marlboro, they use me for commercial applications on certain jobs. Hudson, we have quite a bit commercial, so I am comfortable.
Okay. And organizational skills to keep everything running smoothly? How's that?
I have to be organized to run a business and everything,
Sounds like
but yeah, I have everything pretty much, I don't want to say down to a science, but like Lancaster is I only do them 3 to 5, 2 days a week. So all the electricians have that. Tuesdays and Thursdays, they know that schedule. Hudson's a couple hours during the week also, 2 days a week.
You have that in an app too?
No, no naps.
Well, an app
An app.
on your phone, you know, your calendar and.
Yeah, between that, the calendar on the phone, and still,
Right.
I like to see the whole thing on a calendar still,
Yeah.
on the desk. But yeah, try to use the little alarms and stuff on the phone.
Okay, thanks.
What's the hardest part of being an electrical inspector?
Sometimes when there's confrontation, you have to know how to not people really get fired up. You gotta pretty much handle it to cite the code, and there's always different interpretations on the code. So you try to diffuse the situation before
Yeah.
it gets into escalates. But that's pretty much the hardest, is when there's a confrontation about the code. And sometimes you can't tell, some people don't want to listen when they're wrong. So,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we know that.
but you try, but there's always two sides to the way that it's interpreted, so you try to listen to it, reread the code together with the contractor, and then come up with a solution before it escalates.
Have you ever had a complaint to the state licensing board or anything like that involving inspection services?
On someone complaining?
Yes,
No.
about you, yes.
No.
Okay. And obviously, you, like our previous candidate, are pretty familiar with the town and the area and all of that. So
Yep.
That's great.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions?
No?
Okay, well,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up, Peter.
How you doing?
Hi.
I'm Peter. I'm Assistant Wire Inspector for the town of Bolton and the city of Marlborough with Dennis. I've been the Assistant Inspector to Bolton for almost 20 years, I think, now. So I have my own business, electrical business. I also have a second business, handyman business, so I know a good amount of the trades, plumbing, electrical, carpentry, and stuff like that, so.
I see you live in Bolton?
I live in Bolton. I'm actually on the fire department over there. I've been on the department for 21 years. I'm a lieutenant over there. So I do know a lot of the town roads over around here. I travel through here. My shop is actually just over the town line in Hudson, on the corner of Hudson, Berlin, and Bolton on Central Street. So I'm not that far away from here.
And so what kind of, well, so we use GOTMS here. What experience do you have in?
I haven't had much experience with it other than filling out the stuff online. Bolton still does a lot of it old school.
Okay.
So if I have to do inspections, she'll either email me or fax them over to me.
Okay. You feel comfortable with computers in general?
Oh, yeah. A lot of my stuff is all organized at my shop. You know, with two businesses, you have to be organized.
Okay.
I'm very detailed on how I do my stuff. I'm precise on everything I do.
And how'd you get into, the other two we sort of know because they live in town, but how'd you get into the inspection business? What got
Just
you down?
many years ago, you know, just in being in town, I started becoming a townie in Bolton. I grew up in Sudbury, and then I just moved out to Bolton. You know, I like the country and stuff, and just started, you know, mixing with getting to know people and stuff, and the position came up, and I took it. So that's how I did it, you know. And then Marlboro, John Kane asked me to be the assistant over there. Called me up.
You've been doing that for what, a couple of years at this point?
Marlboro's a
2 or 3
couple of years, yeah.
And Bolton was.
Commercial, are you comfortable experience? with
Yeah, you
commercial
know,
stuff?
commercial and residential, I just feel it's, you know, it's wiring's wiring pretty much. I mean, you just gotta interpret it, you know, the right way and, you know, and inspect it.
What's your experience been in either working in commercial or inspecting commercial electrical?
I mean, there's not much in Bolton, you know, going on over there, and I'm third in line over in Marlboro, so, but I've done it, you know, the first 10 years that I was in the trade, that's all I did was commercial wiring.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm very used to it and stuff like that. You know, it comes down to, you know, you gotta police these guys, make sure that they all have licenses or, you know, apprentices per a journeyman. A lot of these companies now are hiring more apprentices than they are journeymans.
Interesting.
So you gotta check their licenses and stuff like that.
Is that one of the first things that you do when you go out
If
for
I
an
don't know them
inspection?
or if I don't recognize the face, I will ask them for it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm liable, you're liable. So if something happens down the road, it's gonna come back to us.
I imagine in commercial that you don't normally, like, say, Highland Commons, you don't normally know those electricians, so you would have
Correct.
to.
There's a lot of the bigger companies have more apprentices than they do journeymans. Because right now, there's a huge shortage of journeymans out there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that means, but it doesn't sound good.
A license, you know, yeah, there's less people getting in the trades.
Yeah.
You know?
So pilots and co-pilots.
Correct.
And what do you feel is the most challenging part of your job on it?
Again, telling them that they didn't pass the
Yeah.
inspection.
Yeah.
You know, they don't like it. You know, when you go there and they call for a rough inspection, they see wires hanging down, they're not even ready for it. How do you pass that? Even if you do know them, how do you pass it? You know, so, or if you find code violations and, you know, you gotta write it up. You know, so making that phone call or telling them in person that, you know, that they didn't pass is the toughest thing.
And has there ever been a complaint made against you to the state?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, okay.
Not either.
I'm
Electrical
speaking here
or-
primarily about.
Yeah, either one. Yep.
Yeah.
But either,
state,
neither
yeah.
one to my knowledge.
I know you can't be a man in the trades without somebody having a beef with you sometimes, so I was really talking about official.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. And I'm around, you know, I'm 10 minutes from here, from my house, and, you know, literally, like I said, just over the border, so I'm always available.
So you have time, you've got the time between your businesses and...
Yep. Yeah, again, it's, you know, like Dennis says, you manage the company, so if you manage the company correctly, then everything goes nice and smoothly. So, you know, during the daytime, I
Your
can easily...
organizational skills are...
Right on top. People think a lot of people don't understand how I do my schedule, and because I'm very detailed, so.
Great.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. How are we gonna find out who?
Well, no, we can talk.
The first thing is, we gotta figure out how we're gonna find out.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we will not drag this out at this point.
All right,
so.
excellent. All right, have a nice evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, what else do we have here?
We're gonna work our way back through.
Yep.
All right, number 8, consideration of review of tax status before we issue licenses. Don't know anything about this issue, so maybe,
I would suggest that on this one,
well, what is the issue?
I think the issue is that it was, the idea was raised that we should be looking at the current tax status of businesses before we issue a license.
So if someone is behind, we're talking their property taxes, then we should not give them a license until they pay up.
Right.
Okay. Do we actually have instances where we've given out licenses and they're behind in their taxes? Is that how this got brought up?
We wouldn't know. But, for example, there was one, you're asking me? One major business that would have had a bill at one time that was open in the tens of thousands of dollars. So if they had applied at that time, they would have been owing the town tens of thousands of dollars. But it actually, as it turns out, when they did actually apply, which sparked this, they were current. Only because I asked and I checked into it. So if it's, by the way, this is something that's done for the building department. Before building permits issue, the clerk does run that past the tax collector to ensure and get his signature that they are current on their taxes before a building permit issues. I don't think that's the case for plumbing and electrical. But here where we have liquor licenses and other, maybe not Sunday ice cream licenses, and I don't know if you think there's a line between, liquor licenses and Sunday ice cream licenses or common vic licenses. But maybe that is something that you'd want to consider, I don't know. And when this did come up earlier in the summer, Tom noted that this should be taken into account at the beginning of a whole new issuing year. Pretty soon, we're gonna be doing the 17 renewals. So everyone's current now. We have 53 licenses in town. Pretty much all of them renew annually.
When you say 53 licenses, are you talking liquor license, common vic, every license that we give out?
Yep, there's 53
Sunday ice
now.
cream, all that.
Sunday ice cream.
Which is a 50% increase in the number of licenses that we've done in the past 4 years.
And what I did say was, I think we need to do this as a policy, not as a, one-off thing part of the way through the year, that we should put it out if we're going to do this, a month or two before the licensing cycle begins, so that people are aware of that. I still haven't quite seen, or it hasn't been demonstrated to me what the authority is for this. Did we ever get anything on that?
I just skimmed the new modernization bill,
Yeah.
and news reports have summarized that was included in it. But
In
as-
the new bill?
Correct. Well, Peggy said that I'm not sure where the authority is in the past, but Peggy said it would have applied in the past. I haven't put my finger on it. But in the new bill, it supposedly, according to news reports, applies, but when I skimmed the law today,
Yeah.
I did not see it.
I'd like to say this is a question I'd like to ask council of, what's the authority and...
Well, this here, which she printed out, powers and duties of cities, B says the licensing authority may deny, revoke, or suspend any license or permit, including renewals and transfers of any party whose name appears on said list furnished to the licensing authority from the tax collector.
That's Mass General Law.
So doesn't that give us the authority? Of course, we'd have to get a list.
Yeah, as I say, I just hadn't had a chance to look at it. And I don't know what, how common or what best practice is on this. I'm
there's
not
a
opposed to
12.
it, I just think that if we do it, we should do it.
Yeah, I'd send
with-
it through council and find out.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so just, basically confirm that that's that, and we don't have to
You
look
agree
at
with that?
anything else.
Okay.
Good alternative.
And maybe ask them if they,
Deferring it.
have any, sort of best practice guidance on this. And then, as I say, I think if we're going to do this, beginning of November or so on would be a good time to do it, because that gives people,
Send out a notice to have them.
notice of a couple months that we're going to start to do this.
Do the licenses renew for everyone at a certain time?
Most of them do renew at the beginning of a calendar year, except for Sunday liquor licenses and the junk metal license that Berlin Auto Parts has.
Okay.
Other than that, those two I think are April 30th
that's
expiration for May 1st.
Right.
That's why I
Okay.
said I think, beginning of November would be a good time to do it, because you're giving people.
This looks like, my reading of this looks like they have to have not paid their taxes for not less than a 12-month period.
Right, so, but the tax collector keeps that current so giving us a list, he doesn't give us a list, but that's something that he could check as whether they're on the list still or not on the list at the time that an application comes in, you know what I mean? So kind of fluid.
That one says that he shall annually,
Who?
the tax collector,
Okay.
furnish a list.
This says he has to furnish the list, not that he has to check it. So, that's what I'm talking about in terms of,
Yep.
best best practice.
Okay.
Okay? May I suggest that,
Another break?
no, I was just gonna say, Dave is sitting here to talk to us about festivities.
Oh,
And there's really, I don't think there's any need to hang out till 9:30, because I don't think there's gonna be a lot of people coming in to attend this, so
Okay.
rather than keep him waiting, I was gonna
Okay.
say.
please come forward. We know you want to get back to watch the vice presidential
Yes.
debate.
Yeah, I do too, actually.
Actually, there's
Really?
a playoff wild card game in baseball tonight.
Oh, that's what you guess?
So, yeah. But,
Do you have a horse in that race, or?
no, I don't, the Red Sox.
Yeah.
So they're not in, only to that extent,
Yeah.
so it's not that I have to be back. So this is, I kind of came in the other day about this festivities committee, namely Christmas time in Berlin, because there were people asking me whether it was going to happen or whatever. And so I came in to get the meeting posted. And I'm not on the committee, as you know, I resigned
Yeah.
from the committee. So, but I'm the closest thing, I guess, to somebody that's interested in seeing it continue. And I had some informal discussions with the new fire chief, Paul Z, and he's very enthusiastic. And he said we should have a meeting, and because Tom Galvin, the police chief, has been part of this for the last few years, setting up security and lights and traffic and all of that. So, he did talk about having a meeting tomorrow, and so I came in to post it. And comes to find out that most of the people on the committee have resigned.
Okay.
So, and I guess we ended
Yeah,
up.
who do we have on that committee?
No one.
No one, okay.
No,
So
so there's
it's
no
like
one.
really most.
No,
Like the
most
most that can resign, have resigned. yeah.
You don't even have to post it. You can just
Well,
talk to yourself.
that was the thing.
Yeah.
But in the
He's
interest.
not on it either, so.
Yeah, I'm not, so, but in the interest of good government, the town clerk did post the meeting for tomorrow, and the meeting's going to be at the 1870 Town Hall at 10 o'clock. And also, there's sent out on the webpage, and with the announcement that volunteers are needed and so forth. So I'm not sure who's going to show up tomorrow.
Okay.
I will probably attend the first meeting. I probably won't attend any other meetings, but I'll sit in on the first one, and if there's people who are willing to volunteer, I'm going to ask them and to see the town clerk to sign up.
They get appointed by the selectmen, and then the town clerk would swear them in.
So at least you'll have a name.
Yeah, so just, give us the names.
And get you
yes, that'd be great.
the name, and then you're going to then have to appoint them to
Yes.
the committee.
And we will.
And, okay, all right, well, that's.
Won't we?
So, and there used to be there are two committees. The Berlin Home Day was the second one.
Yep.
And there was no, when I started it a few years ago, and I wasn't on the finance committee, there was no money involved, everything was contributions. So, Mary and I started looking at the town report, and
Do you have a budget?
now there's a budget, and it's.
There's
so-
no
and
committee.
there's no committee, so.
Yeah.
In any case, that's the latest as an update.
Okay.
Mary thought it'd be good for me to come at least
No, we
brief you on
appreciate
it. And we'll just see what happens tomorrow. But I believe that both the fire chief and the police chief would like to see it continue.
Yep.
And there are certainly other people in town who want to see it continue. So that's the latest. I don't know, Mary, did you have anything?
The budget, June noted, when she pulled it up to look it over, that the intention for the budget was that it was going to be to provide each committee one townwide mailing each. The issue of why it got budgeted is that they were coming to the Board of Selectmen, our expense account, we hadn't budgeted for townwide mailings.
Yeah.
And so,
But, I mean, that's why we did it, but if they publicize it in a different way, I mean, I suppose we could.
yep.
Yeah.
I mean, there's money there to be used for
Yeah.
that, but if you don't need a mailing, you could use it for
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah, okay.
So now's your chance to invite everyone to the 10 o'clock meeting tomorrow morning,
Well,
right?
all volunteers are invited to the 10 o'clock meeting
Right.
tomorrow, and And we'll just see, there's a lot of interest in it, so we'll see who shows up. And Paul has experiences in Ashburnham, where the fire company actually, and the association, the associated with the fire department, has private funds that he has used towards lights and things like that. So we'll just see how that works out. But,
Good.
all right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
Have a good evening.
Take care.
All right. Capital planning. Town officers meeting.
Yes. What time is that on Thursday?
7 PM.
7 PM.
They have now posted an 8 o'clock meeting for the selectmen this
Okay.
night.
So, this meeting is to discuss possible ways to handle capital planning in the future. So what is the format going to be for this?
Who's chairing it?
You are, because you called the meeting. I mean, the board is.
Excuse me.
All right.
I've gathered comments from anyone who had any. The treasurer gave comments about the FAC. The finance committee chair gave comments about their feelings about the FAC. The superintendent of schools gave some comments about the FAC. And the fire chief gave his capital requests for the coming year. But those are the 4 sets of comments I've received so far.
Well, capital planning committees, there's a bylaw or a statute or something that you can vote them in town, and there's plenty of different formats that are out there. If you look under Mass MMA, Mass Municipal Association has a bunch of the stuff from their annual meeting. And if you go to the Association of Finance Committee, they always have somebody from Arlington talking about their capital planning committee.
Arlington? Is it Arlington?
Arlington. So it's not like it's kind of this nebulous form. So I think we could talk about it, but I think the question has always been when the capital planning committee was the capital planning committee, there were complaints that it was not an official committee. So maybe the first step is to plan at annual town meeting that you're going to make the capital planning committee an official committee. At least that's my thought.
All right.
David, you made some suggestions
So
too.
they have the
didn't you?
Financial Advisory Committee, which was composed of the last few years. And both Chris and I have sat in on some meetings.
And Judy.
And you may have sat in on some meetings. Was a combination of town department heads and some town employees and someone from the Finance Committee, and the town treasurer, of course, was sort of in charge of the spreadsheet. And it seemed to me that it was a combination of employees and department heads. But right at the outset, it said there was no official capacity. There was nothing in writing about it. There was nothing in the bylaws about it or anything, or that they should report to anyone. So it was sort of an ad hoc committee.
Right.
Well, it kind of migrated from being just capital planning, and then it started to evolve to what you're saying. The department heads came and...
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And so when, especially the new fire chief came on board, he was thinking they would have an employee meeting where they would have department heads and they talk about, copy machines and how this place is being run kind of from a operating standpoint, and not so much capital planning as operations. So day-to-day operations. So something like an employee staff meeting or a department head. I think they're calling it a department
They
heads
meet
meeting.
the first Tuesday of each month. There was one today at 10 a.m.
Department heads meeting.
Yep, department heads.
And so that's where a lot of business gets done at department. It's not really capital planning, but it's essential to the life of the town here. So with that, this idea, beginning as early as last spring, of having a capital planning committee came to the surface, and we started looking at what the MMA is doing, you know, as far as training and what other towns are doing, some sample town bylaws.
FinCom, I presume, is going to be there on Thursday
We're gonna
night?
be there on Thursday, yeah. And
Do you have, and are you prepared to talk about stuff that the MMA has?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
we circulated, some of that was what the chairman submitted in those comments.
Okay.
So we downloaded the PDF files of those.
Okay.
So you'll have those to,
Okay.
as a starting point anyway.
Yeah.
They're just a starting point, because every town, it looks like every town sets it up a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Depending on sometimes probably personalities and the way things are organized and the way they're run, so. Certainly open to any ideas and suggestions, and I think that's the idea of having the meetings.
Yep.
Well, when I was on finance, we had no capital planning, and the burden became just too much, because between having everyone come in and talk about their budget, and then you have everyone also talk about their capital plan, that's when the capital planning committee started, but it was never official, and then it migrated to this FAC thing. So it's definitely a need there.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree.
And as it gets close to town meeting, that's when it really gets tough, because there are things that come up on the warrant that are capital planning items, or land purchases, or whatever, and they really haven't been thought out, they're really not part of a plan, and in most cases, there is room for emergency purchases, like something it's on the market, or a last-minute failure of a boiler or something, but usually you can plan for most of it.
Mhm.
So those things, when it gets close to town meeting, all of a sudden, some things start appearing, and the finance committee is left to make a decision or figure out what's going on. So it would be helpful to have some sort of a planning committee.
Yeah, and I think the other thing has been finance saying that people should put stuff in their budget, and people thinking that it's a capital item and that it should go,
Yeah.
and so you
And some of them
really,
are, it's, you know.
Kinda iffy.
hard- Yeah,
Yeah.
hard to tell which is which.
yeah.
Yeah. And I know at some point, we actually, really to encourage people to think about those things on an ongoing basis, perhaps stretch that capital plan to include a sort of basic operating equipment replacement plan, which, and that's the kind of question you could say, is that operating budget, is that capital plan? But, we did try to address, situations in which those really weren't being covered, in the budget and treated. And I think, those are things that can go either way in terms of.
Yeah, and one last thing, that these capital planning committees often provide timber for finance committees, in that people will be on these committees. They're not as rigorous, let's say, as the finance committee, but they get involved a little bit in town planning and financing. And so those people are like a cadre of people who are good candidates for the finance committee. So it's like
A breeding ground for finance committee?
Because people are interested, they're not
Yeah.
quite as interested
It's
as
a farm club for,
sort of a farm club, but an important one.
members.
Yeah.
And they bring that with them to the finance
Yeah,
committee
no, I
also.
think it's a good idea.
It's a good idea.
All right.
Okey doke.
Well, then we'll see you Thursday.
Yeah. it's
Yeah.
Thursday night.
Hey, can you print out some packages?
PDFs?
Yeah.
David, that
If they're not
PDF, the
huge.
presentation that you sent, I don't think that came from Scott, it came from you to the selectmanship, but should I add that as your own comment to the discussion so that I can circulate that to all the departments? Okay.
Ah, good.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right, let's see. So the preparation is that
We're all gonna show up.
we're all gonna show up
Yeah.
and
At least we know what we're thinking about.
talk about
I think
capital
the
planning.
Finance committee will be very helpful.
Yeah.
with the ideas they've had too in the comments.
All right.
There's been some discussion about who the appointing authority would be too.
Well, we can look at some sample bylaws for that, right?
Yep. Okay, scheduling a meeting so we can do our personnel reviews.
Okay.
Now, I think maybe we should try to do it before December. Although it's been a tradition to wait to the last moment.
Sure.
We usually
Every
do
day
it
or-
on a Saturday morning, so I don't know what people's schedules are.
Is
Can I
that
just
what you
see the
did on
calendar?
Saturday mornings?
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
Well, it doesn't have to be a Saturday morning, it would just have to be anytime we post.
If you went, the traditional way was the first Saturday in December, which would be the 3rd, but I'm not sure if that's when they're aiming for Christmas time in Berlin.
Well, I also think that's a little late.
Yeah.
Saturday before that is Thanksgiving weekend, I believe. It is. So then the weekend before that would be the 19th. Saturday, the 19th.
yeah, I think I could probably do something the 5th or the 12th. I think I'm in London.
Well, we don't have to do a Saturday either, we could do another night of the week, if that's easier for people.
To me, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. If I'm
Doesn't
around there,
matter to me either.
Okay, well, you want to try
The 5th?
November 5th?
Well, that is the first parish fair,
Oh, well, nope, that's not gonna
The
work.
12th, that was the 12th.
and the John Geiss retirement party is up on
Fifth.
here too.
Is the 5th.
Is the fifth.
Why don't we say the 12th?
Okay,
Okay,
I got nothing.
Like 9 a.m. is typically,
That's what we've usually done.
it's not gonna be any earlier.
and you don't want me here.
Nope,
Okay, no offense taken.
nope, I didn't think you would.
Yeah, and then Thursday night is
If you were
town-
gonna be here, it'd make it at 7 o'clock.
I have to post it. Thursday night, you want me here for this town officers meeting? I mean, I might go here anyhow, but
I don't think so.
if
I
I
mean,
couldn't
you don't
make it-
have to come in
Yeah.
an official capacity, but if you
Okay.
wanna just come,
Yeah,
come.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay?
All right,
So it's the
so
12th.
this is November 12th.
Where are we
All
having
right.
it, here?
Yeah,
All right,
bring your own caffeine.
alrighty.
All right, and let's see, we're getting there. Personnel Committee, Fire Department revisions to
They're
personnel.
not submitted yet.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll skip that.
I didn't think I saw those.
Pricing, HR compensation grid study for FY18 budgeting purposes.
Yep, this is my own thing, and I don't know if I should be pushing this or not, but the treasurer and the accountant do ask about when there'll be a review of the personnel and compensation grid, since as of January 1, all of Tier 1 and half of Tier 2 will be $11 an hour.
I don't get it. The treasurer and who?
The accountant. So the question is, the personnel committee's budget is $200 each year. In fiscal year 18, do you want to plan ahead a budgeted amount to do a review of the grid? I talked to
A compensation?
Yep. I talked to John Petrin, who did the last one in 2002 for the town, and he gave me a couple of names, 3 names that he'd recommend. There are others I heard too from an MMA feed. But one of them he thought would be a person who would come in and perhaps even do a free consult on just on the pricing, if you wanted to get a ballpark on pricing, but you'd have to talk with that person during a consult on the scope if you were interested in this.
Wouldn't we
If not,
have
we could
to
contact-
talk to our procurement officer about this?
Yeah.
I think the consultation, you mean in terms of
Well,
requiring a consultant?
Yeah,
That's subject to an exemption, as I remember, but.
I don't know.
So, yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I think we have, department heads, which are major, and we have looked at those and looked at comparables as we have hired new people. And once somebody's hired, you're pretty much into contract negotiations. We have, the police, who are union, and obviously we do a review of those when we do the union negotiations. We're looking at the possibility that highway would be unionized, at this point, and in that case, we again do the same sort of comparables there.
Well, I'm not going to argue against needing one, but I think that we need to look, I'm thinking that if it comes to spending money on something that has to do with HR, we'd be much better off with hiring a part-time HR person than spending.
I mean, my point is, given sort of other checks and balances and review for substantial portions of what we have authority over, I'm not sure, I mean, some kind of brief and inexpensive consult might be okay, but I just don't see that there's a whole lot on the table. It doesn't have its own sort of ongoing check and balance, you know?
One other thought that I saw is that there is a community compact best practices grant opportunity for HR and compensation grid reviews. But since we got a grant this year, I think it's this year. I think we're barred this year from applying, so we wouldn't be able to do it until next year.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't read on the line. I'm not sure if that grant was, but we don't have money this year for
Any
Complete
thoughts
Streets
on
or
this?
regionalization.
No, we would have to apply.
Yep.
Well, I know we need to look at, are we paying for each individual job? Are we paying an appropriate salary, or hourly, or whatever? I don't know if it's worth getting quotes from different people, or maybe we just, you're pretty good at spreadsheets and doing things like that, and
Well, it's not the same. I mean, when we had that 2002 one, they came in and did job descriptions and gave us.
oh, is that what the grant was for?
It wasn't a grant, I don't think. I think we hired someone to
Oh,
come
okay.
in and update job descriptions and do, ranges of what people should be getting paid. And we did have a lot of people who got pay raises over like a 3-year period to kind of bring them up to where they should have been.
Right. Now, if you were to hire an HR person, though, would that really be part of their job to do these things?
It could be.
It could be, if that's what you tell them when you hire them.
Okay.
Well, the HR thing is a whole another discussion,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
but, so I guess I would say at this point for B, I don't really feel it's kind of where our time should be put. I don't know.
No, and
If
again,
anybody
I-
agrees with
no.
that or disagrees?
I don't think it's urgent, and again, I do think that we have processes that cover substantial portions that are corrective on an ongoing basis.
Is this something maybe we could talk about on that Saturday meeting?
Sure.
Yeah,
Why don't we just do that then?
okay.
Put that on the agenda.
Okay.
All right, and the final thing that's on here is the Attorney General Abandoned Housing Initiative Program, Grant Program.
I don't know how shovel-ready you'd be for such an application. The deadline is the end of this month, but the Attorney General's office has put out money for abandoned residential properties. I really don't know if Tillman qualifies per se.
I don't know that it's abandoned yet, is it? We
Well,
know,
it's something that the town's been on the fence as to whether or not to take it or not.
The one with the coyotes or something?
this is
Yep.
the one with the greenhouses on Walnut Street.
Right.
And there's a cap
And
of
the coyotes.
$20,000 that a town can get a
Coyotes haven't
$50,000
abandoned it?
match. It's just that Dennis, I sent it to everybody saying,
Yeah.
would this work for Tolman? But I think you already determined that the costs are so high for that,
No.
that 50% match with $20,000 grant really wouldn't put a ding in it.
No, I mean, it would put a ding, but we have to put a lot of
More.
going in with the ding.
Yep.
To do it. Yeah.
So that's that.
No, thank you.
Is that a grant that comes out annually, or we
This is
don't
the
know?
one that the Attorney General's office
Yeah.
just publicized. I don't know, I have not seen it
It
before.
always depends on.
Right.
Yeah. All right, does anybody have anything else they wish to discuss?
How was the department head meeting?
Good, long. I left at the hour 40 mark.
Really?
Yep, it went quite a bit longer than that from the people I saw coming back upstairs. I don't know what else they talked about. We all went around the room and put in 2 cents with updates, but
I actually had it on my calendar for the 4th and then next Monday, and I didn't know which.
So none of us went?
none of
First
us
Tuesday.
went.
I was thinking of running over because I was working from home, but then I was worried about posting a selectmen's meeting because I thought somebody else might be there, so.
You don't have to post a meeting unless you're going to
Yeah.
talk to the other person. I talked to the name of our municipal aggregation, Colonial Power today. And so we got approved for the municipal aggregation. They're gonna be putting together a timeline in the next week or so and sending it out. It looks like, they'd probably send out December 1st, the, you can out if you don't want to be a member of the aggregation. I forget what the card's called. But they'll send out the paperwork on that, and people have 30 days to decide if they want to not participate in the electrical aggregation. And then it would probably start in like the middle of January. And our part on this is that we would probably, so what happens is sometime in November, they'll go out to bid for the rates. And the rates are only good for that day. So what we would have to do is have one person who has the authority to say yes or no on accepting the rate. And what he said a lot of towns do is just say that they give that person the authority to accept a rate that's below the National Grid current rate. So that'll come up next month.
Okay.
We don't need to do anything on that right now. But that's the update. It's
And
finally
then,
gonna happen.
I worked with Deutsch Williams to put together the response on the Teamsters Union inquiry with regard to the highway department. So all of that material went in, I think, last Thursday, and Mary helped with that. Typically, there's a preliminary conference on it that I think is this Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. But
Yeah.
those are usually canceled if you provide the material, so more on that. If there is, we had discussed before that if there is a conference, I would be in Boston that day, and I could, run over just to attend, but had, 2 or 3 discussions with Deutsch Williams. They have all the materials. We'll have to see how it goes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.